Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 92nd episode of our first run through the House of Light expansion for Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist. We just have leveled up, or started to level up, Anbury Lapidary, which should be the last, kind of the last little bit that we needed to commit a bunch of things to Horomakastry. The other one that I want to level up is Pyroglyphics. Now that's a fairly straightforward one for me to handle. We'll just use the Foresight, Regret, and the Pattern and level it up accordingly. However, I am going to have to sacrifice the metal for that overnight, which isn't too big of a hardship. I think as a precaution, I can't see a situation where I'm going to need the Confounding Parable. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep the Satisfaction overnight, seeing as we may use that with Drums and Dances, and there's an outside chance that Weaving and Not Working may use it. For instance, I was talking about leveling up Herbs and Infusions, but that is a little bit of a down-the-road consideration. I think what we'll do is we'll collect everything that we've been working on first, and then we will... I'll collect what I was working on. I will commit things to the Tree of Wisdoms, at least as far as I can, and then sort of from there we'll maybe take stock in terms of how I'd like to move certain things up and down. And of course, I still have kind of this short-ish term goal of trying to consolidate all the different texts. Okay, the skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. So, we will take the Pyroglyphics. I did make a decision that I wanted this to be higher than 3. Ooh. Rosehips. Berries that promise roses. I hope I have the space. This is why I like going to the moors. So something like, Evasive Rushes, it's not the end of the world, but it is something that's a little harder for me to find a place for. Beside the candles is great for this one. A subtle ornament. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Now this, I've kind of overdone it in terms of water. I've got 3 pitchers of these now. However, because I've wanted to make Orpiment Exultant a couple of times, this is sort of the motivation for bringing in a bit more. This is kind of overkill. This is a little bit more of a reflection of the fact that I just didn't have a whole lot to do with that particular element of the soul. You know what? At this point, I'm just going to put it down some... No! But yeah, certainly the intention here is that I want to be able to use it for more than just sort of restoring an element of the soul at the last minute. Okay. So one thing I'm going to want to do is restore the metal. Well, I don't necessarily have... Actually, yeah, the more I think of it, maybe it doesn't make so much sense that I'm restoring the metal, because I should also be getting a bunch of elements of the soul when we commit things to the Tree of Wisdoms. So perhaps what I want to do, I will bring in Denzel, mostly because I can. I'm always welcome at Denzel's Smithy. Denzel will offer help for free as a friend. And yeah, in this case, I think I'm actually going to use the Shaft to earn some money. The Sweet Bones has been the public house in Brandkrug since Cromwell's time. Its history is notable, its beer is not. Guests looking for discreet employment or for discreet assistance congregate in the snug. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6pence worth of odd jobs. Alright, so there's the Pyroglyphics. In fact, I could have already committed things to the Tree of Wisdoms already, so I'm just going to take a minute here to reorder the skills. I do get out of I do get out of the habit of doing that, and then I wonder why I can't make sense of things. All right, so I did make a note here in terms of my plans for Horamachistry. So it was Doran Wall at 4, Anbury and Lapidary at 5, Sacra Solis Invicti at 6, so we won't have that, and then Sacra Lamea at 7, which I suppose means Great Signs and Great Scars at 8? I'm going to guess yes, because I think I usually do Edicts Martial at 9 for that one. Anyways, we have enough to make the progress that I want, and of course that's going to mean some elements of the soul. So let's get to work. So there's the Doran Wall in 4. So number 5, Anbury and Lapidary. Lightning is a little life, and jewels are its eyes. Black Sapphire. The bright arts speak of a shining city unbuilt. One day we might build it in the Mansus, the great house of dreams, with a foundation stone of black sapphire. This would be a great matter of Horamachistry. So had I gotten Sacra Solis Invicti up to the level that I wanted, we would have put it here. This will be... So this could also be... this could inspire some work on my part for reading certain texts, ones that will give me Lantern or Sky. But the important thing to remember here is that really what I'm cutting myself off from are the extra elements of the soul for Horamachistry, which if I consult my spreadsheet, that's Metal and Fet, and those would be two. I think in the grand scheme of things, I think it would be fair to say that those are two that I feel reasonably well stocked on. So the next question would be, if I'm now ready to go for Ithistry, what do I want to do here? And I think the first candidate is a pretty obvious one. That would be Inks of Revelation. And this is where I realize I actually wasn't thinking straight. I do need a little bit more to be able to level it up. However, I do have Weaving and Knotworking. So all is not lost there. So yeah, I think what I'll do here, we'll put Inks of Revelation in position 5. We can move this one's a little bit of a tricky call. I don't know if I'd maybe want to do Pyroglyphics or Glass Blowing and Vessel Crafting. I'm trying to think of the other... I'm specifically thinking of ones that I've already got at kind of a higher level. There's a few others as well. Yeah, I don't know. I think those are probably the more likely candidates. The funny thing is that for Ithistry, this is really just because I can sort of movement, right? Like this is more, I've got the spaces, but this doesn't unlock a branch that I couldn't already access. Whereas in the case of something like Birdsong, this is where I can actually start making some choices. Although in fairness, I've been able to commit things to Birdsong for a while. So, okay. I was thinking that I might have been able to unlock a little bit more in the Tree of Wisdoms than I was planning. Sorry, I thought I was planning to unlock more, and I realized that I actually kept myself short on some of these, which is fine. So one... Okay, I'm actually going to make some notes on these. So one thing I can see myself doing is making some Birdsong decisions. And this is really just trying to make some choices here about, like, okay, so I've got something for position 3, I've got something in position 5. Like, where do I actually want to take this sort of stuff? Harder to say what I'm doing with preservation. The funny thing about preservation is it doesn't really unlock anything special for me. So actually this is true for both preservation and Bosk. This would really be more because they give me elements of the soul that I need. So those are maybe not as high of a priority. Actually, I suppose you could say the same thing about Birdsong. But I think there's a fair statement here that Skolokosophy is really becoming sort of a block for me. So let's say Skolokosophy. That one goes higher, because that should help me out with Nyctodromy and eventually Hushery. And in fact, it'll be important for Nyctodromy because that one's going to require some higher level choices. So if I think about Skolakosophy, I actually think I had some notes on that one too. So maybe one thing that I could reflect on here would be, right now Skolakosophy isn't that high. So we're looking for level 4 and level 5. Really, it's just 2 that I want to try and move up. And we've done Pentiments and Precursors and Ragged Crossroads. So if that's the case, Serpents and Venoms would be a candidate because that's fairly low. What I really want to look for here are sort of the level 2 ones. So we've got Serpents and Venoms, I think. Yeah, Solutions and Separations is a choice. I really should just be holding this over the icon. Let's say it was Serpents and Venoms and Solutions and Separations. And like as just as a, a sake of the argument sort of thing. If it was just those 2, right? I say, okay, that's it. I'm done. That would take me up to Skolakosophy 5. So the more I think about this, the more I think this is the path I want to take. So I'm actually going to put this on my to-do list because I think there's some pretty clear takeaways. So, and it's funny because I seem to recall Solutions and Separations is one that I recently acquired. So I need a 4 and a 5. Now, I will just note here, this is a specific choice that I'm making, right? And that's driven by, right, so I've got these Skolakosophy items here. Lockworks and Clockworks would be one that actually satisfies this need right away. The only challenge is that if I do that, that means that I have just a longer road to go when I want to start putting these up to the higher levels. So it's not that hard to level something up twice, particularly in this case where I've got, I've got some skills that I've got some like surplus in some books. So for instance, it's not just Door and Wall, but it's Anbury and Lapdary now, which have been committed to the Tree of Wisdoms. And as a result, I can put those kinds of lessons towards leveling up something like Solutions and Separations and Serpents and Venoms. The other thing that's nice about this is Moon and Scale, whereas Solutions and Separations is Knock and Moth. So there's no overlap in terms of the memories or the lessons. That means that there's a wider range of things that I can apply towards that. So from there, I need a level 7 Nyctodromy. Now this gets tougher. So because that one I actually need to work backwards from. So it'd be a 7, 6, 5, 4 actually. Okay. I think I'm just gonna hold off. We're gonna worry about the 7 and then we'll worry about getting to the 7 there. But I definitely have some ideas. I actually think if I look at Nyctodromy, I think Edict's Liminal is a pretty good candidate, and it's already pretty high. Disciplines of the Hammer, and I mean, I suppose technically I can make the same arguments for Path and Pilgrim and Insects and Nectars. But if I recall correctly, we have a book that's got Edict's Liminal. It's one of these somewhere. Also, just taking a look here with the Tridesma Hyra, we've got a lot of books with that, and those might be good for some of the ones that I want to level up the Moth with. But that's maybe... I'm getting a few steps... Like, so right now I've just been spending a lot of time sort of planning this out. I don't want this to be a full planning stream. I just want this to have a few sort of measurable targets that I'm moving towards. So things like saying, okay, let's try and get Sacrosolus and Victi up. Let's try and get, you know, Solutions and Separations or Serpents and Venoms up. I think I'll just sort of arbitrarily say Edict's Liminal unless I start seeing, you know, Path and Pilgrim or Insects and Nectars sort of creeping up. So we do technically have the Queens of the Rivers, but we know that's only going to give me one. But I think that kind of gives me enough to get some basics on. And then, of course, Inks of Revelation +1. That's actually one that I can do right now. So... and that will get me into Ithistry. And then I'm probably going to want to... Actually, you know what? Let's take a second here and work out Drums and Dances. I did work out my Sacra Lamea plan, but I'll erase that, and that's obviously done. Yeah, if I want to do Drums and Dances... So Impulse would be 1. So Solace and Storm. Cheerful Ditty. I'm at 6. So Hive's Lament. And I guess from there, Thunderskin's Paean. So those are not necessarily easy for me to get, but they're not impossible. So, so it's one thing for me to say, okay, cool, I've got an Impulse. That brings me up to 8, but I still need 2 more. Although technically if I apply another Health, I at least have that. But yeah, the Impulse isn't going to push me over the edge on that. So the other approach that I could take would be we take the Health, we take the Drums and Dances. Now I suppose I'm going to need music in that case, or an instrument rather. Now, yeah, so I was originally thinking, well, then we can just take the Mortar and Pestle, which gives me the extra ink. But the problem with that is then I don't have an instrument to do the Hive's Lament with. So that doesn't work as well as I had wanted. This, on the other hand, does give me a little more to work with. So this one's just going to get weird. But let's say I apply the Mazarine Fife. I'm a little reluctant to use the Lignum Vitae Blanc. But if we add the U Blanc... Yep. I'll use this as an example, but... Okay. So like I said, this is going to be a little weird. But I'm going to grab an Impulse so that I can do the so that I can make the memory that I want. I'm trying to remember where we were on this. I'm just going to go from ambrosial and move up. Now, the more interesting question. If I wanted to try and do the Thunderskin's Paean, we're so close. Okay, no, this is an easy one. We just add the satisfaction. Okay, so at this point, I'm more or less committing to leveling up drums and dances. So at this point, what I'll do is I will get the cheerful ditty, and then we're going to see what happens with Denzel. For Inks of Revelation, now this is going to be an interesting one. Technically, Denzel can give me everything that I want for the Inks of Revelation. But let's think of the 4 Lantern and Moth that I can go for, because it's actually harder than it looks. So I've got the Foresight. We're already getting the Impulse, so I can't get that right away. So Revelation. Oh boy. Can I even do this? Bittersweet Certainty is 3. Okay, yeah, then we gotta wait for the Impulse. Okay, well, at the very least, let's do Bittersweet Certainty. I think it's better if we just wait until after we get the Impulse, because we don't know what we're going to get from Denzel, and we're going to have to wait the minute anyway. Okay. So the last thing that I want to do while working this all out, I did have a short list of things that I wanted. So Solutions and Separations, Serpents and Venoms, Edicts Liminal. These are all sort of prime candidates for improvement. There we go. So Deaths and Their Evasions, although 14 knock is too high for me right now. So maybe that's one of the ones I was thinking of. So a similar reason here, I think if I try to do Stone Stories, I have to do something kind of like leveling up Drums and Dances, so I'm avoiding that right now. Okay, so that gets me a Solutions and Separations, so Debate of the Seven Cups. I'm moving it over here. I actually don't know if I'm able to read this yet, but it's one worth, in my opinion, it's one worth taking the effort on. Sacra Solis Invicti, so that's one that we want to move over so that we can level that up when the time comes. I believe this also gives me a Savage Hymn, if I'm not mistaken. This one's a bit of a shame, so From History to Eternity would have saved me... How confident do I feel in getting a nice big mothy book read? I feel very confident in that. Okay. So, I've sort of worked myself into a corner here, but... Oh, no. All right. I can't use the consider verb like this. That's... All right. Nut. I think I can still get away with this. So if I do Sacralamea and Trist... Yeah. So what this does for me is this lets me use Weaving and Not Working on one of my other skills. Okay. This is definitely a tempting one to read, but I'm gonna resist the urge. Wait a minute. Did I? No, this is in fact Sacrosolus Invicti. Sorry. Okay. Ragged Crossroads, I believe we have already, put in, so I can read that and put it elsewhere. Same argument for Inks of Power, actually, and that would help me out with Serpents and Venoms. That's actually enough for me to want to put in the Red Book of Brittany, except that I don't think I have any good rose skills. Okay, so if I went from 5... Ooh. Alright, so I need to somehow find 7 more. After the... There is one way I can get it. I can get it from the Stimfling, but... technically, the Black Book of Brittany would also be sufficient for leveling up the Serpents and Venoms. I really don't have the skills that I need. Yeah, so I don't know where I got this impression that I had a whole lot of edicts liminal. Although I should maybe be a little more relaxed. So I keep saying that 14 is like super hard, but if I actually take a look at the at how realistically how difficult that is. So if we do Deaths and Their Evasions, we add Fusine, I add the Shapt, I add Great Signs and Great Scars. So without like a hardcore memory, we just need a 4 knock. I mean, at that point, that's just a curious hunch. So wait a minute, why did I do that again? Right, because of Edict's Liminal, which helps me with my Moth, which I guess I didn't really need help with. Fair enough. Okay. And I think we already went over these, but I'm just going to double check. Yeah, Trades Ohira. Lots of transformations and liberations. Preliminal meter would actually be 1 for improving my rows, but I need a whole bunch of rows to get it. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so I'm not going to lie. This is actually a lot more lopsided than I thought it was going to be. We definitely have some things we can follow through on, so I feel okay about that. Unhatched Hymns, weirdly enough, is going to be the tricky one, because I currently have 7. I guess the thing that'll be nice is that when I level this up, I will have 6. So I can take that up to 8 with my Faust, and then I just need a memory. So yeah. We don't have too much time left in the episode, but we will make a bit of progress. Ah, brilliant. Okay, so the rain helps me a lot with the drums and dances. That basically saves me from having to generate one of these memories. So the Hive's Lament, basically, I'm not going to try and get. Denzel rarely works for free, but he won't take payment for helping a friend. So right now we're just using him as a source of memories. At Oriflamme's, though, so Oriflamme's established 1776, Sense Signs Sciences. Dear Librarian, we would like to offer you this opportunity to purchase The Deaths of the Moon, a historical tract on various forms of survival after death. An 8 moon in Kilisimi, gives us no stories, and costs 3. Oriflamme's thanks you for your custom. Not exactly the book that I want, but I think that one actually gives us a salt, so I'm going to have to reshelve those. I probably should be using more elements of the soul to generate memories right now, but... Ooh, that revelation's welcome. So this is kind of the advantage of not getting ahead of myself for those Inks of Revelation memories. It's already going to take us longer because we're reading the book. But as it happens, Denzel just sort of handed me one of the memories I would have almost certainly generated on my own. So because I know I'm going to be doing more today, I am going to start renewing the shaft. So it is summer. I'm sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. And I think we'll leave it there. So I'm feeling reasonably good in terms of the overall shape of our plan. It was a little unexpected that so few of the memories that I would be generating were direct, or lessons rather, that I was generating would be direct. Oh, sorry, there's one group that I didn't check, which was my VAC. So that also has Edicts Liminal, and in fact, that's okay. So that's one that I definitely want to take a look at. Road to Janus is one that we can apply to anything because of the door and wall, but it's an 18 knock mystery, so I shouldn't expect too much out of that. Messenger awaiting her destination, similar story. And the manner in which the alchemist was spared, we've already got our Anberry and Lapdary, so we can apply that to anything. So this is this is almost like a whole shelf of freebies. Now, audio is not the easiest thing for us to generate, or to work with. We've got a Tower Rises, the Lake Fusino recordings, which is Heart. I think that's Drums and Dances. Yeah. This one is Stone Stories, so for the same reason we don't read the Hanavek title. Strings and Songs might be interesting, though, because that does give me some Rose, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's Sky and Heart. Okay. Yeah, not too much. I'm not changing too much out of that, but... And then, as I keep saying, I do also have the options of clearing out a few more of these cursed books. But I think probably my next batch... So I think my next batch of actions before the next Salon is going to be... I'm going to take a look at what I currently have... Well, so I'm going to work through what I've already read or have here, right? So Unhatched Hymns and Debate of the Seven Cups should be something that I already take care of, full stop. And then what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do another pass through my bookshelves like this, but what I'm going to specifically look for are ones that I've already committed. So, for instance, well, actually, probably the White, Red, and Black Books of Brittany would be a good example. So Ragged Crossroads, Inks of Power, Inks of Containment, all of these have been committed. And each of them should give me something that I want to level up. So I guess technically Ragged Crossroads would help me with Edicts Martial, but I feel I can be a little more clever than that. Red Book of Brittany would be something that I probably would put towards Serpents and Venoms because of the scale. And then the Black Book of Brittany, that one gives me Winter and Moon. So I guess actually, the more I think of it, if I take both the Red and the Black Books of Brittany, those could both go towards Serpents and Venoms. And then I've got the, I've got the higher level of the two that I need. So yeah, I definitely think we've got a few options here before I sort of throw up my hands and say, okay, I need to start opening up some more rooms. But of course, all of that will happen in tomorrow's episode and beyond. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.